And now, ladies and gentlemen, he doesn't need an applause. And a Ranger fan should be applauding because they haven't won a Stanley Cup since this guy was running the organization. Ladies and gentlemen, a friend of the show is doing great right now. His podcast is banging away as the Wraparound Podcast is rocking and jocking. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Neil Smith. Neil, what's up, buddy?
Oh, thank you for that great introduction. There's a much handsomer, younger version of what you're seeing on the screen.
Well, you do look good in the picture, but you still look good, Neil. I mean, you stand out there. If you walked at an island, if you go to an Islander game, you go to a Ranger game, everybody knows who you are. And Ranger fans who probably have their own thoughts to whatever they think, they haven't seen a Stanley Cup since you. I mean, everything that you did, you built that 94 team. That 94 team was built the way you wanted it to be, and it was a tough team that had so many finesse players, and you're the one that made the trade for Mr. Mark Messier.
That's true, and that's what started the whole march to the Stanley Cup, was getting Messier on the team. So he changed the culture of the Rangers, and you know what? Thank God we were able to do it one time, because they haven't been able to do it in 85 years. They've only done it once, and that was our year. And it was because of Mark, mainly because of Mark. And thankfully we got it done, and it's obviously a lifelong treasure for me, for sure.
Well, you're definitely a treasure compared to Chris Drury, okay? I mean, I have my own thoughts of Chris Drury. I know you probably know him. I know him personally. I played a little hockey with him. I mean, he's an interesting personality, and he thinks he's the greatest in sliced bread, but still can't get the Rangers over the hump. But I wanted to get into this four-nation tournament, which I think Gary Bettman has really hit a home run on this. I mean, this is something that I wanted to see for the NHL. One, because everybody wants to play for their colors, wants to play for their countries. And even though the Russian team is not in this tournament because of everything that's going on in the world, that would have been sensational to see them in, because I think these would be the five best teams in the world playing against one another. It's still fantastic. Your thoughts to the creation of this four-nation tournament?
You know what? I think it's fantastic because it got rid of the All-Star game. And anything that can get rid of the All-Star game and have the players play with some intensity and see real good hockey is great. And that's what you're seeing in this tournament. This isn't really a tournament where you're playing for your country. You're playing for countrymen that play in the NHL, because it's only NHL players in it. So it's not like, I mean, if there was a Swedish player playing in the Swedish league that was a tremendous talent, he's not in this tournament. So it's really about citizenship that you have playing in the NHL. And so, but it has been great hockey, just fantastic hockey. And we got rid of that god-awful All-Star game.
So what do you think of the next steps you could build on this if you're the NHL? Like, obviously the NHL's running it, so maybe, like you were saying, maybe the professionals that are in these other countries that have to wait, like in Russia or Sweden or Finland, like they have to wait to come over to the NHL, don't get to in the tournament. Do they expand more countries? Do they expand more facilities? What do you think they can grow on with?
Well, hopefully the geopolitical situation cools down, and the Russians can play, because certainly they're one of the hockey strong hands. The other place that we've got a lot of good players are Swiss, believe it or not. I mean, there's a lot of good Swiss players in the league. I'm not sure there's enough to make a whole team. There's a lot of good Czech players. They should be able to get at least a fifth or sixth team. Will they play this hard every year? Well, certainly they won't on the Olympic years, because they won't have it. But I mean, it's been a gold mine. Here's what I'm wondering, guys, is Saturday night, they finished Thursday. Saturday night, when Brady Tkachuk is the captain of the Ottawa Senators playing against Montreal, what a letdown. Right? I mean, you're playing in a great rivalry game in the NHL, but you're like, oh, okay, do I have to do this? It's going to be a letdown for these guys to go back to the NHL.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Like, do you think they stay with this format, or we kind of touched on it, and our producer Fish was like, maybe like rotate like different styles or versions of it to make it exciting, to keep it exciting, because we've seen how everybody's trying to change these all-star games from, baseball and basketball and hockey to where it keeps you interested and it keeps the players motivated to actually want to perform and actually be involved in it instead of just like, oh, I have to do this because it's all-star weekend.
No, you're right, and that's what they're taking this seriously, and they really want to compete against, even if it's their own teammates, to prove that their country's guys can beat especially with the U.S. and Canada, because the U.S. has been the underling for so long to Canada, and now they've gotten to that point where they're producing players out of Scottsdale, meaning Matthews. They're producing players out of all over the country. It's not just Boston, Minnesota, and the northern states. They're coming from all over the place, and they're going to be able to beat Canada, obviously. And I'm Canadian, but they're going to be able to. There's 330 million people here. I mean, there's 35 million in Canada. They've got to be able to, if they want to, take over this too. So I love the rivalry. It'll be really interesting to see what happens on Thursday night. I don't think it'll be like it was in the first game with the staged fights at the beginning and that. I think it'll be a real good game. But it's been a great tournament. I wasn't really seeing it. I didn't envision it being this good. I thought, oh God, it's a money grab. It's the NHL, deciding to put Canadians against Americans, against Swedes, against Finns, but it's been great. It really has been great.
We are talking to former GM for the New York Rangers, the New York Islanders. Should be a Hall of Famer. I don't get why the NHL hasn't inducted this guy into the Hall of Fame, especially Ranger fans. For all the Ranger fans that are out there listening to the show right now, this is the guy that brought you your last and probably for the next 30 more years, your only Stanley Cup. I'm just telling you the truth. And I am an Islander guy, so I don't know when the Islanders are ever going to win. And we all know about the Islanders' woes over the last couple of years. Neil Smith, he's joining the show as he always does, and he's fantastic. Neil, we watch hockey year in and year out, and there's a lot of differences that I've seen over the last couple of years, and that's speed. The NHL is just much more faster than it was in the 90s when you were a GM. Yep. And it's changed the game. And you look at some of these old teams like the Islanders trying to, get young. But, Lou Lamoriello, for some damn reason, likes to trade away picks to bring in these old players because he thinks, hey, the older the better. It doesn't work that way, as we've seen some of these young teams win Stanley Cups. Why do you think the speed of the game has really changed hockey for the better?
Well, I think speed and skill, because they changed the rules. There's no more grabbing and hooking and holding guys up the way that we used to do. They used to have power forwards, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", to power their way through being hooked and held and all this. Now that you can't do that, and now that you can't even clean guys out from the front of the net the way we used to, now the little guys can play. And one thing about smaller guys is their skill level is extremely high and their speed is high. I mean, you think about the small guys that played during the years we just talked about in the 90s, and that Theo Fleury, Marty St. Louis. These were amazing, skilled, speedy guys that could play. Now you've got a ton of those guys in the league, and you don't have that many big guys. So, you know what? I think changing the rules and clamping down on the hooking and holding and interference, that's what's led to the speed.
So you look at the drasticness of the trades that we've seen. You were talking about it last time you were on the show. You actually picked the Florida Panthers to win the Stanley Cup because of the trades that they've made, trying to get more physical. And the Rangers were in a lot of these rumors because of Chris Kreider with Zibanejad had the no trade clause, but then Trouba as well getting traded, just trying to get some new guys to fit a different type of culture. Like if you were Chris Drury, obviously they made the JT Miller trade. Like what types of players would you be looking for, and would you ever consider breaking up some of those core players?
I think it's really tough for him because, they won the President's Trophy last year. Yes, they got knocked out, but they were a damn good team, and they started 12-4. They had a good club. Where I think they went wrong is what they did in the summer with Trouba, where they let it get public that they were trying to trade him. And when that gets public, all hell breaks loose, right? So you've got to be sure you don't let it get public. It did. Now, no matter what Trouba says, no matter how professionally he tries to be and say, I'm going to come to training camp and I'll still be able to lead, I'll still be able to do things, I don't see it. And then they go in and lose a couple of tough games to Edmonton and New Jersey, and the place blows up again. And now Trouba's, sentenced like he's some kind of bad guy. Like he's just, if you don't go to Columbus or wherever we tell you, we're going to put you on waivers. Like this was the captain of the team. Then they turn around and I don't know. They banished Capo Caco for, I don't know why, but they did. I mean, he's second overall. He's not a superstar, but he's an NHL player. He's an NHL player, a usable player. And they just banished him out of there. To be honest with you, I don't know where you go from here. People are talking about, do they get rid of Zibanejad? And I'm like, well, he's a really good player. Like, who are they going to replace him with? You can't just turn this thing. You can't turn Zibanejad into Messier, like by snapping your fingers. If you could trade Zibanejad to Colorado for McKinnon, then you'd have today's Messier playing in New York. But you can't do it. It's just not able to do that.
First of all,
you got to do the best you can do with what you got.
First of all, that move with Mark Messier was one of the greatest trades in NHL history. I don't even know how. I don't know how Edmonton agreed to that trade. I mean, you absolutely robbed the Edmonton Oilers and said, you know what? Give me Mark Messier for a bag of bones or bag of pucks. That's what I did. I mean, that's what you did. I mean, seriously, if you look at the players that you traded away for Mark Messier, I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest captains in NHL history and a guy that actually guaranteed to beat the Devils in that series when you guys were down and scored 3 goals in that game.
It was amazing. I was there, and I've never seen anything like it. I mean, somebody who had the balls to say that we're going to win tonight, and I guarantee it, and then goes out and gets a hat trick, and we win the game. It was incredible. It was like a Joe Namath. I've compared it to Joe Namath with the Jets, and Reggie Jackson with the 3 home runs in 1977 at Yankee Stadium in the World Series. It was just an incredible sports feat that he'll be forever remembered for. And I'm lucky enough to be part of that. It was incredible.
Yeah. Do you think too, like along those lines, when you're looking at a situation like that and a player, do you look not only obviously at his skill set, but what he brings to the locker room and leadership? And is that something that they still value to this day, or is it more so what they can just do on the ice, not necessarily what they can bring to the locker room and leadership?
They should be looking for leadership. The thing that I was doing, guys, back then was the Rangers had been a losing organization, and we were trying to put some winning culture in there. And I knew that in order to get a winning culture, you had to get guys that have won before. And that's hard to do, right? It's hard to go and get guys that have won Stanley Cups, but we were able to, because of Edmonton's financial difficulty, able to grab guys out of Edmonton. And I remember one of our owners at one time saying to me, "No more Oilers." And I was like, "No more Oilers? What do you want, Senators and Sharks?" Because at that time, those were the 2 low-level, teams. And it was like, of course you want as many Oilers as you can that have won these 5 Stanley Cups. They're the best players in the league. It'd be like saying no to the 80s Islanders. Of course you'd want those guys if you can get them. But Mark brought a winning culture into the Rangers. I mean, he brought an attitude, a swagger to the Rangers that they'd never had before. And, we probably should have done it in 92. It's a shame that we didn't win it in 92 because we had a really good team and a lot of injuries and bad luck in 93, but then thank God, able to do it in 94.
Neil, I've been watching a lot of hockey, more hockey this year than I have, because I think there is no guarantees any of these teams are favored to win. I mean, the Florida Panthers obviously are up in the Atlantic Division. They have 71 points, but right behind them, tailing right behind them, is the Maple Leafs with 68. You have the Lightning 66. They started off slow. Even the Senators are having a very good season. And then the Capitals, they have 80 points. They've been just absolutely dominant, but are you going to trust their goaltending going into the playoffs? I mean, and even in the Western Conference, there's no guarantees in the West. I mean, the Jets, obviously, the Stars, they're always good. They have a good young team. And then the Oilers right now, who have always been questioned with their goaltending. Are you going to trust their goaltending? This might be the most opened season when it comes to who's going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I'm not going to make a bet on that. You can't really bet on this, especially when it's 7-game, which is so grueling. The NHL is the best when it comes to playoffs. Are you surprised that this season has been so close and bunched together when it comes to teams?
Yeah, very much so. Just what you just said. I mean, I feel the same way. The Winnipeg Jets are a great team. The Washington Capitals are a great team this year. Spencer Carberry's doing a great job. Scott Arniel in Winnipeg's done a great job. Winnipeg has the best goalie in the league by far, and Connor Hellebuck, who's on Team USA in this Four Nations. Dallas has a good team. They went and made some great move, I thought, with San Jose getting Granlund and Cody Ceci. I thought that was super to reinforce their team well before the deadline. You've got Toronto Maple Leafs that suddenly are playing a lot different than they did under Sheldon Keefe. Craig Berube's got them playing defense first, which is an amazing thing with Marner and Matthews and Nylander. But we're not sure whether they have the goaltending. Edmonton, Stuart Skinner, I don't know. Can he take them to a cup? I mean, he took them close to Game 7, but I don't know that they can win. And my team from last year, the Florida Panthers, who I predicted would win early, they took a lot of losses in the offseason. They lost Montour and on 2 or 3 really good players. They're still a really good team. They've got the experience of having won, so they know what it takes and they won't get frazzled. And they've got Bobrovsky, but Bobrovsky's not a spring chicken. So I'm right there with you. I don't know. I would hate to be a betting guy trying to bet on who's going to win this thing. The only thing I know for sure is bet on Hellebuck to win the Vezina.
So I was going to ask that, because he had that playoff drought last year where he was pulled from a couple games.
Home run.
We've seen a lot of these other star goalies that have gotten pulled from these games. Like, do you think either not necessarily platoon, but like the 1A, 1B, or the goalies that are like good value, younger goalies on the contract is the way that these leagues are moving now? And if so, like, how does that connect with some of these goalies, including Igor Shesterkin that just signed a big contract?
Yeah, and unfortunately for the Rangers and for Igor, he hasn't played that great since he signed that contract. I mean, he's 11 and a quarter, and you're playing like that. Like you should put shoes on the top of your mask and stand on your head every game. He hasn't been great. Team hasn't been great either, but you've definitely got to have a 1A and then have a number 2. You can't go with 2 guys that you sort of don't know who's number 1. I don't think. I think you got to have a pecking order. The Islanders, with Sorokin and whoever, because Varlamov's been out all year, and the Islanders got right down to playing their 4th guy. They played the backup of Bridgeport one night. They did. I mean, and I'm not criticizing him. He played fine.
I am.
But they had to play him. Hogberg got hurt. He's their number 1 in Bridgeport.
Yep.
And Varlamov has been hurt forever. I don't know what his injury is. You never find out with the Islanders. They're pretty tight-lipped, but I believe that you got to have a number 1 guy, a strong number 1 guy, and then have a really good backup that can perhaps steal a game here or there when the number 1 guy's tired.
Yeah, you think like too with all, and especially with as long as the playoffs are in hockey, which I love, and I'm glad my son picked basketball because I don't miss those 5 a.m. ice times, but that's neither here nor there. But what do you think like separates to winning the cup and not getting there? Is it depth? Is it, certain just instinctual stuff as far as knowing how to win? Or what do you think separates those teams that can get to that next level during the playoffs?
The playoffs are a totally different format than the regular season. So you can't judge much on the regular season. What you can judge is the way the team plays. Do they play a playoff style, which is, like Florida last year was like a bunch of pit bulls running around on the ice trying to, just jump you like it was gang warfare every game. And you've got to do that to win in the playoffs. And you're going to hit adversity, but you've got to band together as a group and overcome that adversity. It's really hard in the playoffs to go in there and think, well, we were good in the regular season. It's going to be good in the playoffs, because shit happens in the playoffs that you can't predict. You're going to suddenly be down 2-1 and then 3-1 and go, holy crap, if we lose another one, we're done. And we had this great season. We were first in our division and we're going to be done. So it's mind games in the playoffs. You play every other night for 2 weeks against the same opponent. It's totally different than the regular season.
We are speaking to former New York Rangers GM, Stanley Cup champion GM, 94 New York Rangers, Mr. Neil Smith. He also, for a little while, for about 24 hours, was the Islanders GM until Mike Milbury stepped in, the idiot, and practically, did what Mike Milbury does, stupidity. And you mentioned the Rangers. I mean, the guy that they need to get rid of is Chris Drury. That's the guy that needs to be out. I mean, that guy is just absolutely making trades that you just shake your head. But Neil, I mean, when are you going to have your bobblehead day? I mean, what are the Rangers doing over here? We've seen Messier bobblehead day. We've seen Brian Leach, Adam Graves. I mean, you are the one who built that team. Why aren't we having a Neil Smith bobble day? When's that going to happen?
You're going to have to ask the Rangers. You're going to have to ask the Rangers that, and the owner, Jim Dolan. You know what? I don't know.
You want to talk about a bobblehead? I mean, that guy.
I don't know what kind of head that would be.
I was going to say, just make sure they don't have his band play a song.
No, well, you know what? I'm just, and I really mean this. There it is. I'm just blessed to have been able to have a life where I was the GM of the Rangers, and I was able to accomplish something that I got to see with the Islanders in my early days and got to understand what it took, and then was able to take it to the Rangers. And it's hard for me to even believe at this point that I did it. Like, it's been years ago, and now I look at it and go, how the hell did that guy do that? With the trades and everything else, it was just a lot of good luck it was involved in.
That has nothing to do with luck. The way you built and you built that team, making that trade for Steve Larmer. I could go on and on and on. I couldn't stand the Rangers, and you know why? Because you explained to me why you did it, and maybe if I knew that story, maybe I'd still be a Ranger fan, but I'm not. I didn't get a chance to have a conversation with you, Neil, but it's funny because every time I go to the draft or I even have a conversation with John loves the Rangers. He's always loved the organization. He would have loved to be there in '94 to win that Stanley Cup win. But, you decided to go with Richter, and Richter obviously stood on his head, did that split against Pavel Bure. And I'll never forget that. I mean, Pavel Bure was the Russian rocket. He definitely had rockets coming out of his ass. But I remember. And by the way, that time of hockey, to me, was the best time for hockey. Some of the greatest players I've seen, from when it came to Russian, to Sweden, to Finland. I mean, we can go to Timo Solani. I know you watched that guy play. That guy had a tremendous ability to put his body in front of the puck and just completely, shell off the people around him to put the puck in the net. I mean, and that guy was a kindergarten teacher, I remember. I mean, before he was a hockey player. I mean, it's a tremendous story about who he was and what he. And then Paul Kariya, remember him, the Ducks?
Oh, of course.
The lightning bolt he was when he was drafted. I mean, he put also helped put the Ducks on the map. my question to you, and there's a lot, we can go over and over and over again. And by the way, before you go, I don't want you to leave. I want you to join us in our Save Your Tears recap. We're doing Save Your Tears, right? Are we doing that? Fish, are we going to do that tonight, or are we just doing? Oh, we're just doing a recap.
I think it's a recap for the NBA.
All right, so I wanted to when we do like a Save Your Tears hockey one, I want to get you involved. I want to see how you pick it, and we'll see how how you fall in when it comes to the points, because we have a new game that we play on the show. But my question for you is, you look at New York hockey, and you see Lou Lamoriello. I think is washed up. I think he needs to go. He's a Hall of Famer, but he's washed up. All right, you see. One, why haven't you even gotten another job? That's one. And you're doing, by the way, I want you to also tell the fans how they can find your podcast, because I've been listening to your wraparound, and you still haven't invited me on that show. I'm upset at you. I mean, I've been wanting to come on that show many, many times. Could you imagine Joba? Joba loves his hockey, too. Like Joba Chamberlain, former New York Yankee and two-time World Series champion, coming on and arguing hockey with
an apartment made of Henrik Lundqvist.
That's true, too.
Right above me.
No, by the way, and he has some stories with that, and Carl Hagelin, too.
Lives below me.
Wow.
Below and up.
They should never have gotten rid of Hagelin.
Oh, loved him.
Yeah, I did too.
The thought of New York hockey. What do you think? Both these teams are not having very good seasons. What do you think has been the complete, thought of why these teams haven't gone over the hump? Since '94 for the Rangers and the Islanders. I mean, in the '80s. I mean, let's go. I don't even know why I'm rooting for the Islanders. That makes me sick. I mean, I'm a Jet fan. That's enough said, all right? My team stinks.
I know, that's the first time you said Jets, and we're almost 2.5 hours in. I almost lost my mind.
No, he mentioned the Winnipeg Jets.
Yes, I mentioned the
Well,
Winnipeg
no,
Jets.
his Jets.
I'm a Jet fan, all right? I hide behind it, but I'm a Jet fan, all right? So what do you think that these teams need to do to get over the hump and win a Stanley Cup?
Well, I think the Islanders' problem has been ever since John Pickett sold the team. They've gone through series after series of bad ownership, and this ownership is a good group. This is Scott Melkin and John Ledecky and John Collins. They're really good, and they're a class act, and they're doing it properly. I believe out on the island there, as far as ownership is concerned, and they will. At some point get over the hump. I can't say exactly how they got to do it. Lou does things his way. I think the Rangers got a real gift when the salary cap came in. It saved themselves from themselves, because when you could just go out and spend money wherever you wanted it, the Rangers just blew money all over the place and didn't have to have a real plan in place of how they were going to do things. Since they had a plan in place when John Davidson was there, and the previous general manager, why am I not thinking of his name?
Jeff Gordon.
Jeff Gorton. They were doing a good job, I thought. And Drury has kept up that, and they signed Panarin, and they've done some good things, and they had a great season last year. And I thought they were going to be good again this year, but they self-imploded based on the craziness that only can happen at MSG. As far as the Devils are concerned, they've done a great job, I think, in just staying sort of in the background, but doing what you're supposed to do to build a team up. They got to get a power forward center. I think Jack Hughes is marvelous, but I'm not sure that he can be your lead dog because he's not big enough to be that. I think the Devils are the better team right now in the three teams. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But I don't know. It's really, really hard to do it with the Rangers because you've got so many different things coming at you all the time of media and fans and ticket prices and all this different stuff. The Islanders, it should be a little bit easier because you're hiding in the background and you can just do what you got to do. But for whatever reason, it hasn't been able to take legs. They've made the playoffs, but that's been it. They've just made the playoffs. And the Devils, we'll see. They're sort of, I think they're going to they got a good chance to win a round and go, further. Um,
Smoking
but
Lou. That's
again,
all I'm going to say. He's smoking. He's doing something. Whatever I don't know. It's legal now here in New York, so maybe he's you know, he's smoking that Kush over there from L.A. I don't know what Lou's doing because he's trading away guys. The future prospects for this team and this organization. It makes me sick. I can't even point out a player that I could say, hey, you know what? That's the guy I'm looking forward to seeing 10 years from now, where he's going to be I see Matthew Barzal that has not really developed. He reminds me of Alexei Kovalov. That's what he reminds me of.
I say that every game.
Yep. Reminds me.
He is Alex Kovalev on the
100%.
Islanders.
100%. I say it all the time, and we never even spoke about it. I tell Speedy,
No, never.
Never.
And I tell that to people all the time.
Yep.
I said, he's got to start to understand what the objective of the game is. And the objective of the game is to put the rubber thing into the net. It doesn't matter how many guys you beat. It doesn't matter how much you whirl and twirl and can cut and do all this stuff. If the puck doesn't end up in the net, it's all for nothing. I told Alex that when Alex was playing for me. I said, Alex, at the end of the night, you see the scoreboard? At the end of the game when the buzzer goes, the number under New York has to be bigger than the number under the other team. And that's all that matters. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if we beat guys 3 times and then twirl around it doesn't matter. All we want is a bigger number when the buzzer goes under New York than under the other team.
Neil, you used so many different words, bigger and rubber. I mean, those are 2 words that, hey, maybe if Barzal doesn't understand it, we can express him by sending him pictures of a woman. Okay? That's what I'm going to say. All right? Because Barzal has no idea what it is to shoot the puck in the net. The talent is there, the ability to skate, one of the fastest guys in the league, his puck handling skill, everything. Alexei Kovalov Jr. But for some damn reason, that kid can never get over the hump. When was the last time he scored 30 goals in a season?
I mean, if you could put Brock Nelson's head into Barzal's skill, I mean, you'd have another superstar playing, right? Because Brock Nelson knows how to score.
Yep.
He knows what it's all about with scoring. Barzal has unbelievable skill and talent, but doesn't understand scoring. So
maybe they need to make the his main jersey the fisherman jersey, so that there'll be more nets, more net skills involved.
Yeah, net skills. Yeah.
The Gordon Fisherman jersey. So I want to ask one more quick question before we let you go. The whole JT Miller and Elias Pettersson feud that was going on in Vancouver before Miller was traded to the Rangers. If you were a GM, how would you handle that kind of situation if it came about?
Well, you have those things come up all the time, and there's different ways. There's different stages to these kind of things. So first of all, if you have a problem in the locker room, it's up to the captain and the assistant captains to take those guys out at night, straighten it out and say, look, we can't win with you guys being like this. You're 2 important players. We've got to get past this crap that we're dealing with. Now, if the players can't straighten it out, they got to go. The coach has to do something, and the coach and the assistant coaches have to pull the guys in and say, look, how are we going to fix this thing? This is about winning. It's not about your problem with each other. It's about winning. If that doesn't work, it's then got to go up to management. But it should I can't say this enough, guys. I said it about Trouba. It should never get public. You don't let this stuff get public. And especially in Canada, where they're just hockey crazy, you can say, well, it's not easy to not let it get public. Well, too friggin' bad. That's your job. Don't let your dirty laundry get out, and take care of it in the locker room. Don't let it get out. So it's too bad for the Canucks. I mean, they had such a great season last year, and it doesn't look like they're going to be, they're going to make the playoffs this year, but they're not going to be formidable. And the Rangers, I mean, it's a good trade for the Rangers if JT Miller can, not do whatever he did the first time and not do whatever he did in Vancouver, whatever that was.
So you don't have an inside source?
No, I don't on that. No, I mean, he's got Trocheck there, and those two grew up together. Trocheck will keep him in line.
Well,
who I think has been a great signing by Drury.
100%.
Trocheck has been a real good
Probably
player.
the best signing that Drury has made, and some of the worst things that I mean, if you look at the last 4 years of what Drury has done, I can point out 3 or 4 trades that he should have never made. And it's cost the Rangers. I know they went to an Eastern Conference Finals against the Florida Panthers, but they had no business against the Florida Panthers in that series. I mean, the Florida Panthers were that much better than they were. But it's crazy. Hockey is so fun to watch. I can't wait for the playoffs this year because like we were saying, Neil, it is so wide open. This might be the one season that it could be an absolute surprise who's going to the Stanley Cup and who wins the Stanley Cup this year.
I absolutely agree with you. And usually about this time, I could tell you who I think is going to win. So, I really did call it with Colorado.
Yes, you did.
I really did Florida early. And this year, I just don't know. If you made me say one team, I'd go back to Florida again. If I had to say a team, I'd say Florida again. But that's pretty hard to repeat.
There's a lot of, when it comes to hockey, it's probably the hardest sport to win. I say that all the time. Hockey and baseball, those are the 2 sports that, you could. Basketball, you kind of, you can pick who the top 4 teams that are going to probably win. And then obviously football, again, as the referees like to get in the way of things, as we all know. It's always happened, and it's going to continue happening because Roger Goodell's running the organization. Anyways, Neil, we love you. By the way, tell the fans how they can find you and your podcast, The Wraparound.
NHL Wraparound, every platform you could be on. We're also on YouTube. If you want to see this face, you can look at it on YouTube. If you just want to hear it, it's on Spotify and Apple and all the rest of it. Vic Morin, who was with ESPN for 30 years, and I do this show together. It's not the young show like you guys have where you're bantering around a lot of personal stuff and that. This is more of a historian and current modern day show together. 2 old guys that are just that have been around looking at it for a long time. We have a lot of fun together. The biggest thing we have, Errol, is our guests are really good. We've had many high profile guests, and we're really proud of that. And that's because I'm a hockey guy and they trust me when they come on, that I'm not going to say anything that's going to, piss them off while they're on there. So it's NHL Wraparound, and you can find it everywhere. Subscribe, like us, do things. We need more subscribers, as we all do, right? Everybody needs more. But I appreciate you letting me, plug that thing.
We appreciate you coming on. I mean, you're the great Neil Smith, and if you want to get more, downloads and viewers, you just get somebody like Speedy on your show, and you beat him up, on the camera.
I wouldn't do
smack
that.
Him around,
I
appreciate that.
Just smack him around a couple of times, Joba, who's 6'3", he sits on Speedy. That would be fun. I mean, that would definitely be something to watch, right, Joba? I would love to see you sit on Speedy.
I didn't want to say what I was going to say, so Speedy, I'll spare you on that one, buddy.
Like a bug. Anyways.
Well, guys, let me know when you want me back.
Neil, you got to invite me on your show. I don't want to scare your partner, but I definitely would love to come on your show.
We got lots of shows to go. We've done it for 13 months now, and no quit in sight. We always got tons of content, as you know, doing yours. This is not about basket weaving, where after the 3rd episode, you go, oh, crap, what are we going to talk about? Sports gives you continuous content. It never ends. So we will get you on and have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is Speedy. He calls me,
you're the king of wishful thinking.
I'm the king of wishful thinking. So there you go. Anyways, we love you, Neil. Keep up the good work. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.